Welcome into KC Sports Tonight, Tuesday, December 10th. Marleah Campbell here with Gabe Swartz. And Gabe, interesting matchup. Whoops, as I put you out of camera. There you are. Interesting matchup coming up on Sunday as we have really a tale of two seasons in Chiefs Kingdom up in Cleveland this week, which is a Chiefs team that just clinched their 9th straight AFC West title. Got a little help from their friends this weekend with the Rams taking down the Bills. Really looking to cling on to that first round bye, the AFC's #1 overall seed, so a lot to play for in this final stretch. The Browns were just eliminated from the playoffs. They're 3-10. It's been a certified dumpster fire up in Ohio. How do you see Sunday's game going for a team with, let's face it, nothing to play for collectively? I guess you could argue individually these are guys, fighting for contracts and that kind of thing.
I think Sunday is the last landmine on the schedule. Everything else would make sense if they lost to whether it's Pittsburgh, whether it's Houston, whether it's a Denver team that's probably going to make the playoffs that people didn't think was going to make the playoffs. You look at the last 2 years, the Chiefs have lost one game each year to a team that you would say, oh, that's straight up just not a very good football team.
Yeah.
And so if there's going to be one on the schedule this year, it would have to be this Browns game. I don't know if it'll happen or not. We will really get to test the theory of, does Jameis Winston throw 2 dumb interceptions every game? Or are the Chiefs just allergic to creating turnovers because they've only created 2 turnovers in the last 6 games? I think that's the one thing that I am most interested in seeing is how does that the Jameis Winston experience go up against a Chiefs defense that is solid but not forcing any turnovers at all this year.
Yeah, and has been struggling as of late, particularly with their secondary bunch. This is my favorite stat line of the season. Ready? Jameis Winston against the Broncos, 34 for 58, 497 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, sacked 3 times. Did you watch that game?
Yes.
I was 2 weeks ago.
6 total touchdowns. Two
if
of
you
them
count
just for
the
the
2
wrong
pick
team.
sixes,
So.
Just if you count those, just an unbelievable stat line in the worst kind of way. But what have you seen out of Jameis Winston and kind of the Winston era here as of late, and how do you see that matchup going?
Well, I almost wonder if they would have. I mean, they weren't going to do this because of just the way that the NFL works in terms of when you spend money or you spend draft picks on somebody, you give them chances to play, and they spent an unfathomable amount of money, the Browns being, on Deshaun Watson, and as a result, they weren't going to bench him until he tore his Achilles. And so as a result, I actually think that the Browns, if all else had gone differently and they had started Jameis Winston throughout the year, they're probably a little friskier, because as far as all the statistics went, offensively they were the worst team in the league when Deshaun Watson was their quarterback. They've gotten significantly better as a result of Jameis playing. They've also gotten a little more erratic because it's like that Broncos game. It's either incredible or it's awful, and then there's not as much of just unable to do anything and just punting the ball away. It's typically they're moving the ball in chunks or they're turning it over, and that's kind of what Jameis Winston did when he was in Tampa Bay as well, when he had the 30 touchdown, 30 interception season. So I think that the Browns are probably better than the 3-10 record states, and if you asked me, I would say I don't think that they're one of the worst 5 teams in football in the same way that the Raiders are and the Panthers have been and the Giants have definitely been in recent weeks, and the Jets. So there's all those types of things. It's still a Chiefs game that is going to end with like a 3 or 4 point deficit.
I thought you were going to say blowout.
No,
somebody knock on wood. We're at a plastic desk.
There's just no. You have to be delusional at this point to pick the Chiefs to win in a blowout.
So here's something interesting. I mentioned 3-10 for the Browns. Those 3 wins came over the Jags. Okay, also bad. They're eliminated from the playoffs. The Ravens and the Steelers. So 2 quality wins there. And then Gabe, this is something when I was looking up a couple stats just now. Did you see Kadarius Toney's been waived by the Browns
I did.
today? Yeah.
Yep.
So there will be no Kadarius Toney Kansas City reunion. I'm sure he would have loved to have a big game against the team that waived him just a couple months ago, but alas, we will not get that reunion on Sunday.
His Browns stat line, because I just wrote this for the website.
Yeah.
That he was waived today ahead of Sunday's game. There's some irony in it coming at this time. His statistics for the season was no catches, no yards. He played in 3 games. He had 2 carries for -4 yards. He had a taunting penalty on Sunday after fair catching a punt, and then he muffed a punt and lost the fumble. So,
well,
that's probably the end of his NFL career.
Yeah, which is, these guys work so hard. It's disappointing, but kind of further validates, I think, he was on the roster bubble come training camp. I think we saw it going the way it did, but I suppose if you're the Chiefs, further validates that decision. Okay, let's look ahead to we're in the home stretch here, which is honestly unbelievable. It feels like we were just at training camp, but 4 games on the schedule before the playoff starts. We got the Browns on Sunday, then that kicks off a 3-game span in 11 days. So you got at Browns, hosting the Texans the upcoming Saturday, and then at Steelers on Christmas. That's the 3-day and 11-game span. Three days and 11 games. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? 3 games in 11 days. And then closing out on the road against the Broncos. Those first 3 games, the next 3 are all at noon. So we talked about the Browns, but out of the next 3 games, Texans, Steelers, Broncos, that's a pretty good lineup. How are you feeling about the backstretch?
Well, the Texans are weird because they're winning the AFC South, but I think that we've seen enough of what the Texans have been doing throughout the year to not be super stressed out about them. They lost a home game where the Lions threw 5 interceptions. I know that they beat the Bills, which is probably their best game of the season, but overall, I think that they've been a relative disappointment in just compared to the expectations versus the reality of what they've been. I know that they've had several weeks where they didn't have Nico Collins. They had several weeks of I don't think that C.J. Stroud has necessarily produced at the same level as everybody thought, and that's despite the fact that they added Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon's been one of the best running backs in football this season. So I don't think that the Texans are the same level of threat that most people thought they were going to be heading into the year. And at the same time, I think that it really has separated out that it is the Chiefs, it is the Bills, and then maybe it's the Steelers if they can lock up the AFC North and kind of separate. But everybody in the AFC definitely has their flaws. I think that if it wasn't the 6 touchdowns from Josh Allen on Sunday, a lot of people would be very, very concerned about a supposed contender giving up 44 points with no sacks and no turnovers defensively. That's not something that you want to see from a contender in December. So I'm still thinking that at this point it's just going to be Chiefs-Bills at the end of the day in the AFC. It kind of feels similar to last year, but also where we could kind of think, the Ravens are inevitable to be at the end there because they were so overwhelmingly the 1 seed. The Chiefs aren't overwhelming people in terms of point differential or margin of victory every week, but they are separating themselves out in the 1 seed to the point where the Chiefs could lock up the 1 seed by next Saturday if 4 things happen. If the Chiefs win the next 2, if the Bills lose and the Steelers lose, the 1 seed's done. So I think that's critical because of the way that the schedule sets up. Yeah.
Going to be interesting, especially looking at Christmas Day. By the way, that game is going to be here on KCTV5. It's on Netflix nationally, but locally in town you'll be able to watch it right here, which is a big deal. We all know the streaming issues that creates. So going to be a big Christmas Day game at noon. So open your presents and then flip on KCTV5. Should be a fun day. Okay, speaking of teams with flaws, Gabe, you alluded to that a little bit earlier, which is a nice segue to our next position, which is the left tackle spot. DJ Humphries underwent an MRI yesterday on his hamstring, which he injured in his first and only game with in a Chiefs uniform on Sunday. Operating under the information we have, which is he had an MRI. That could literally mean nothing. It could mean he's out. We don't know. How do you feel? Let's say Humphries can't go. What do you do going forward here?
Man.
I mean, the answer is Wanya Morris, but how comfortable do you feel with that?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has just been such a situation, I guess, the whole year. That's just the way to go. I would say I was there Sunday night, and when Humphries went down, it was my initial thought was, okay, who's down? I couldn't really tell. And then once he got up, I was like, okay, he's limping. Couldn't really tell exactly what it was, but my speculation, as much as that would be, is that if the MRI results haven't been leaked as a really bad thing by a national reporter, it is probably good news.
Yeah.
And I say that hesitant because I've said a lot of things about the Chiefs and they should win and they should win easily and things like that against the Raiders and
fortunately, we've
Panthers.
learned to stop saying
And
that on this show.
we're gonna learn to stop saying that. So I'm hoping I'm not wrong about this. But if you have to go back to Wanya Morris, they have to be more reliant. I can't believe I'm saying this when Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. They have to be more reliant on running the ball, considering on Sunday it was 5 of their first 7 plays were run plays, and 2 of their next 25 were run plays.
Yeah.
In terms of straight handoffs, and so that's just not a recipe for success of telling the defense, hey, we're gonna throw the ball, come rush the passer against our suspect left tackle, and doing that repeatedly is kind of insane, I would say.
What did they say the definition of insanity
exactly,
is, right?
doing the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's, Patrick Mahomes was sacked 3 times last game. In the last 3 games, it's been 13. So
and getting hit.
Yeah, all the time.
Way more than
and he has no time. So, that's Patrick Mahomes and his scramble ability and his ability to get out of the pocket and make plays, still getting sacked 13 times in the last 3 games. I suppose it was better if you count, it went 5-5 then 3, but still Humphries when he was in, Andy Reid said the game went fast for him early. That's to be expected. He hasn't played since week 17 last year. He's coming off an ACL tear, which is not an easy recovery. Even when you come back, it's a slow process. So as we have been saying all year, we will see where this goes, because still not a lot of answers going into the final month of the regular season. Okay. Last topic I want to hit today is mainly just so I can get it off my chest, which is Kansas high schools, about a third of them have adopted the shot clock for the upcoming season. It's an opt-in process, so Keisha allowed schools to vote if they wanted to try this year. It's the first time in Kansas history ever that high schools are using shot clocks. Gabe, I have a strong opinion. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I don't remember the exact numbers. I know that it was 90 schools?
Ish, yeah.
And I think 60 or 65 of them are 5 and 6As.
Yeah.
So it will significantly impact the sport in terms of the Kansas City metro area. I will say this is not high school basketball. It's not even the same level. It's my biggest experience with basketball that was not with the shot clock is in 5th grade. Mm-hmm. They had elementary school basketball in Canada when I lived in the greater Toronto area. And we played in a tournament with our school where you played 3 different games, and there was pool play, and you had to advance, and point differential mattered and such.
Yeah.
And my coach figured out that we could advance if we
won. Yep.
We won the game, but we gave up less than 7 points.
Yeah.
And we were. It was actually really fun, but it was a disgrace to the game of basketball.
Yeah.
We ran dribble weave for legitimately 35 minutes
Yep.
and won 8-6.
Yeah, oh no.
And every single time that the other team had the ball, it was the most stressful thing of all time, being like, they better miss this shot.
Yeah, you're only getting 4.
It's not real basketball. I know that coaches in high school basketball are not doing the same level of thing, but it kind of happens.
We've seen it, yeah, which is the argue for the shot clock.
And that's why I would be generally pro the shot clock. I know that it probably will force teams into some, oh crap, there's only 6 seconds left and we've got to shoot the ball. But I think it's a good thing in that American youth basketball is taught at such a different level than what it is in like Europe and such, and they focus more on the developmental stuff. And so I think that this is getting us into a spot where hopefully the ideal would be kids are more used to the shot clock when they get to college. It ups the level of play in college as well. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not. And I think that the half in and half out of, oh, you can do it if you want to, some schools, and you cannot do it if you don't want to, some schools. I think really that is probably the most delusional disaster part of the whole situation. Okay. What do you think?
Oh, boy. I hate it. I really do. And I get it. I get the arguments for it. You're exactly right. We've all, I mean, if you've been to a basketball tournament, if you kind of have been on the AAU or the MAYB circuit, you've seen those games where you're like, okay, this has to be fixed. And if you've been part of one, like I have been part of one on both sides of it, it stinks. I mean, it's the worst. I think the words disgrace to the game of basketball is a great way to put it.
Yes.
As someone who I played high school basketball, obviously no shot clock. It was in Kansas. And then I went to the college game and played on a 30-second shot clock in college. The difference is unfathomable. It is a different game. Like, the speed is night and day. Kansas is going to a 35-second shot clock, which is a little bit better than the college 30-second. But I think that scenario you described, where teams are going to be in 6-second situations going, oh, crap, I think that's going to be like a lot of possessions.
See,
because
I don't know.
It's hard to fathom how quick 35 seconds is until you're not used to it. And also, it's really not like you think 35 seconds. It's really 25 seconds, because then you get to 10 and you're like, shoot, we have to do something right now. So having made that transition myself, I cannot put into words how big of a change it is. And I see the argument of, if I would have played with a shot clock in high school, certainly my transition to college would have been a lot easier. But not that many kids are going to make that transition.
Exactly.
It's a really, really small percentage that go on to play in college. Then the factors I'm not sure about are like, do freshman and sophomore teams do it? Because now you're having...
Well, you have to pay an extra person to clock it.
Which is...
and you have to also hope and teach people the mechanics of how to...
Yeah. Do you know how many times...
Okay, you have to watch to make sure that the ball hit the rim.
I don't know. We don't have video review. There's so many. How many games are going to come down to the final seconds? And now refs are added another wild card into the factoring of all of this. I mean, I could have made this a 25-minute show on this exact subject, but...
almost just want to go see a couple high school games just to watch the mayhem.
Oh yeah, I'm planning on doing that. Especially it's a different sport. And you also mentioned the inconsistency of some schools are doing this and some aren't. I don't know how you do that.
I think that's the part that is the most I would say would be frustrating as a coach, is if you know you're at a talent disadvantage, the thing to do is to shorten the game and play fewer possessions.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that we see even in the NCAA tournament. The biggest reason that upsets happen is you see teams that play slower styles of basketball. They know how to execute with taking 25 or 28 of the 30 seconds off the shot clock, and then executing late. I don't think we're going to see the same level of thing at the high school level, but it just creates an odd. It'd be like if you played high school football with a different level of like play clock every once in a while. It just doesn't. I don't know. It's
and I'm trying at my high school. I think the people who operated the clock were like the baseball coach and like one of the assistant football coaches or something, which if the off chance they're listening to this, they did a great job, but they're not shot clock operators. That's a whole different ball game of I mean, every 35 seconds / less than that, assuming the clock doesn't expire, resetting. When does it reset? So I don't like it. But, hey, I hope
We'll
for
see.
the sake of the game I'm wrong. And time will tell, because to their credit, Keisha is doing this on a trial basis. So, and this year, if it is a disaster, we can pull the plug and quit it. If it speeds up the game in a good way and players get used to it better than I'm expecting, then we stick with it. But I'm curious either way, because this is like one of, if not the most highly debated rule change in the game at any level. Should we have a shot clock? How long is the shot clock? And we will have at least, you got to try the science experiment out before determining it's wrong, right?
I think that in terms of clock management things in high school basketball, the bigger one in terms of impactful and would require being more attentive at the scorer's table, but also is less of a task than doing the shot clock, would just be stopping the clock on made shots under 2 minutes in the game.
Yeah.
Because we still see things where in high school basketball, a made shot with like 3 seconds left, the clock just keeps rolling. And that is one of the things where if you don't have timeouts, you can't stop. It just from interesting, that would be the one that I would go to before doing that.
I'm with you. And another fix that people forget is there's the 5-second call. So if you're playing someone close for 5 seconds, like, you can get the ball back. So it's not like, you're out of luck and there's nothing you can do when teams are trying to dribble it out. But alas, I will get off my soapbox and we will call it a day here on KC Sports Tonight. Gabe, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 5:30.